What's up guys, and welcome to this 4K gaming rig build guide. Now this video is going to go through all the parts you need to build an absolutely brilliant 4K gaming rig that will be able to run pretty much any game you want in 4K. But just what is the ultimate 4K gaming machine? Well, obviously ultimate is pretty subjective, and likelihood is you might have a few different ideas about a couple of the parts in this machine. However, if I was going to go out and spend this amount of money on a rig for 4K gaming, this is what I would buy. Now I call this machine the PSI, power per square inch, literally because it's quite a small case, as you'll soon find out, yet it has enough power to absolutely 100% drive the latest titles at 4K, whether that's at 30 frames a second with one card or about 60 frames a second with two. So what's in the rig? Well, as always, let's start with the case. The case is the Fractal Node 804, and this is an M80X case. Now this case is brilliant. It's a cube-like case, so it's a bit wider than most normal full tower cases, but because it's M80X it's still quite small. And because you've got all this extra sort of length that way, it means you can fit loads of components in as well. So not only can you fit multi-GPUs in there, you can also stick up to, I think it's 8 drives. It really is a lot of drives, and loads of radiators as well. So pretty much anything you want to be able to put in it, you can. The only, of course, limitation is with the M80X form factor, and that just means that you'll have to forgo something like a sound card, but we'll touch on that more in a minute. Now as for the motherboard, we've gone for the Maximus Gene V2. Now this motherboard is actually the one I use in my personal rig, the one behind me. Now the reason I use this is because obviously it's M80X, but it's pretty much the best M80X one you can buy. Now the onboard sound is absolutely brilliant. It's one of the features that I knew would be good, but I didn't expect it to be this good. The sound quality, even though it uses a Realtek chip, really is brilliant, and it's free from static. Other than that, there's 8 SATA ports, the whole thing looks great as well, and overclocking is really easy. And pretty much any feature you want, this motherboard has. Now the processor to go in this is an i5, and it's the 4690K. Now the reason we haven't gone for an i7 is because realistically for gaming, you don't need it. An i5 is not going to bottleneck your system, even with 2 graphics cards in there, unless you need like the editing prowess of something like the i7 or like an Extreme Edition or anything like that. The i5 is going to do you pretty much the same as anything else would. It really is not going to bottleneck your system at all. And of course in applications where you do need a bit of CPU power, it's still going to perform very well as well. So unless you're going to be doing loads of CPU intensive tasks, I'll just stick with the i5, overclock it, and you're going to get absolutely brilliant performance at a very good price point. Now the CPU of course needs a cooler, and the cooler of my choice is the H90 by Corsair. This one is only a single 140mm rad, but it's still going to keep your computer nice and cool, of course your CPU in check, and it's going to do that while remaining pretty quiet as well. The one I have runs pretty much near silently. And yes, you can go larger, you can get something like a H110, but without spending too much money, again from a price performance perspective, this one is the one to go for. As for RAM, random access memory, I've gone for some Kingston Beast 2400 MHz RAM. And it's 16 gigabytes of this, and the reason I've done this is because 8 gigabytes is kind of pushing it on a rig this powerful, and actually you can get this RAM at a pretty decent price, so it's worth going for the faster RAM that won't bottleneck your system pretty much at all. It's really nice quick RAM, and it's affordable, and it's available at a great price. Pretty much the RAM to go for. Now the graphics card was actually the hardest bit of the rig to choose. Normally it's actually one of the easiest things, but for a 4K gaming rig you need a lot of power, but you also need a lot of VRAM, and this is something at the moment Nvidia aren't really doing. The 780 Ti's only have 3 gigabytes of VRAM, and I don't think that's enough for a future-proof 4K gaming rig, so I haven't gone for them. So I've gone for AMD then, haven't I? Well, no, because I personally wouldn't want multi-GPUs from AMD. I just think that the frame times are off a bit and you can get more stutter than you'd get from an NVIDIA SLI solution. And NVIDIA SLI actually does have a fair amount of stutter from time to time as well. So I definitely wouldn't want it being any worse than what I've got now, which is 2 680s. So I would actually go for 2 780 Strix editions by Asus. They've got 6 gigabytes of VRAM, which is going to be more than enough for 4K pretty much for the foreseeable future. Maybe you'll need something like 8 in the future, but I can't see that. Definitely for the lifespan of these cards, and then because it's in SLI you're going to be able to run any game you want pretty much at ultra settings at 4K at around about 50 to 60 frames a second. Of course some games will, not quite get that, but a single card as well will actually be able to get 30 frames a second at 4K without AA, again on most titles. If you want to get into 4K gaming, it is notoriously hard to run any game in 4K, but I think these 780 Strix editions are pretty much the best way to go. If you're after a single card, then maybe an AMD option is the better option, but if I was doing it, I would go for either one or two 780 Strix edition cards. Did I mention that they're silent when they're not running, and even under pretty much full load they're pretty quiet as well. Definitely some tip-top cards there. Now the power supply is an 850 watt power supply, and that is the RM850 by Corsair. It's fully modular and the cables are nicely sleeved as well, but the main thing is that it's got enough power to provide power to both cards in SLI if you go for that way, as well as everything else in your rig, and you won't really need anything more than an 850 watt power supply, definitely for this size of build. As for drives, we've gone for the usual SSD and HDD combo. We've gone for the 500GB Samsung 840 EVO, just because that's pretty much the most quick SSD you can get, at least with a SATA connection. You also have loads of room on that 500GB for both your OS and plenty of games, so all your favourites can go on the SSD. As for everything else, well, you're going to need a normal hard drive, and it's just a pretty standard 1TB Western Digital black hard drive, as it's a very quick traditional hard drive. It's obviously nowhere near as quick as an SSD, but for ample amounts of storage, a black edition 1TB drive is the way to go. Now I haven't included an optical drive. If you need one, this case does support a slot loading one, so you can get a DVD drive for about £27–28, or the Blu-ray writer is quite a bit more expensive at about £100, but unless you're going to be burning CDs, playing games from old DVDs, or just, I don't know, if you need a DVD or Blu-ray drive, then obviously you can get one, but we haven't included it because for a gaming rig it's not really necessary anymore. Finally, you're going to need a copy of Windows, and of course we've gone for Windows 8. Not 8.1, because actually Windows 8 is a little bit cheaper these days, so if you have the extra time to install Windows and then install the 8.1 free update, then that is the better option, but if you're a tiny bit lazy, you can just get the 8.1. Do shop around, it is worth getting whatever's cheaper. Make sure that if you're building a rig without a DVD drive or Blu-ray drive, that you actually install Windows onto a USB drive before you start building your PC, so you actually have something to install onto it. It'd be pretty frustrating if you've got a CD or you just don't have a copy of Windows when you build your rig, because you're gonna be a little bit stumped without a copy of Windows. And there you are, a small form factor rig that pretty much will put any console you like to shame. It is worth noting that whether you go for 1 or 2 GPUs, you are going to be able to game in 4K. If there are a couple of titles that you don't want to lower the settings, you can always stick the resolution down, but primarily this rig will be able to run pretty much any game you want at 4K, which is obviously the whole point of building a 4K machine. Of course, you're going to actually need a 4K monitor, and it's worth keeping an eye out on the Acer 4K G-Sync monitor. At the time of filming this, we don't know how good it is, but I have a feeling this could be the best monitor of the year, but obviously we'll have to wait and see, unless you're watching this at a point where it's already out, and then you can go and see. So this is my ultimate 4K gaming rig. If I was going to go out and I was going to buy an ultimate 4K gaming rig, exactly these components is what I would buy. But it's not about me, it's about you. What do you think? Leave any comments below on what you think is good about the rig, what you think is bad, what you'd put in instead. But I'm particularly interested in what you think of my strategy of going with the 780 Strixes. I haven't seen this done before, but I definitely think it's the right thing to do. So what do you think? Please leave any comments you have below. Don't forget to like the video if you thought it's been useful or you just liked it. If it's not been up to par and it's been subsaturated, that's not a word. If you don't like it, then leave a dislike and let me know in the comments why. Don't forget to subscribe to PC Centric for more videos like this and other PC rigs, and of course other PC gaming and technology related videos. Share this video with anyone you think that might benefit from it, and don't forget that new videos from PC Centric are available every Wednesday, Friday and Sunday at about 6 PM GMT. Thank you very much for watching this as always, and I will see you in the next video.